Hello and welcome to Turing Dev Talks. This is Love, your host for the day. I'm signing in from Surat, India. In the tech world, DevOps is quickly becoming one of the sought after roles. One of the reasons for that is because it enables faster development of new products and easier maintenance of existing deployments. Many developers are looking to transform that current roles to a DevOps role. Today, we have one such engineer with us to talk about it. I would like to welcome Marcus, who is a DevOps engineer at Turing. Joining us from Brazil, Marcus started out as a full stack developer before transitioning into a DevOps engineer. He is a super skilled full stack developer with expertise in Java, backend, React, and JavaScript. But we won't be able to talk about that today. Today, we are here to talk with him regarding his experience from transitioning from a full stack developer to a DevOps engineer. Honestly, Marcus, I'm really excited to speak about you with this. So let's begin our conversation. But first of all, how are you doing today? How is your day so far?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this mock interview. I think it's gonna be a very nice talk with you today. I'm doing really good today, and it's been such a nice day. Actually, I've just woke up, so
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. So, how is work going so far? How is work treating you today?
Okay, so I can say that my current job, at my current job, they have been very friendly with me. I mean, they are always willing to help me out and try to make me very comfortable with the job that I have to do there. So they are treating me really good. And I can also say that I think it's important to mention that they are very patient about my accent, which is something that I was a little bit worried about when I start working there. Other than this, I can also say that you know at my daily activities, it's been also such a nice surprise for me because they allow me to be very free and make my own decisions and suggest some improvements to their environment. So it's making me very proud about my current job there. And regarding my current lifestyle, I can also say that it's been very nice because since I joined Turing, it's it's making me have a very flexible time. Nowadays, I have way more time to be with my family, for example, and it's also good because during the day I can have some hard stops at the middle of the day, and then it allows me, for example, to go out and go to the gym for workout, in the non-peak times, so I can start working, have a hard stop, go to the gym, and then go back and finish my daily work. So it's been very nice as well. And other than this, I do not spend time commuting nor going to restaurants. I can eat at home. So, working from home has been a very amazing experience.
Yeah, work from home is really advantageous if you
Yeah.
are having a really jam-packed day. So as I can see, like you have a complete mixture of work, fun, and family time. So that's
Yes,
really
for sure.
great. So let's now deep dive into our today's discussion. So Marcus, what does a day of DevOps engineer looks like? Like, can you walk us through regarding like your day-to-day task and responsibilities as a DevOps engineer?
Yeah, for sure. I can split my responsibility into two main major stuff. The first one is that for sure that my main responsibility as a DevOps engineer is to make the developer's life easier. And how I can explain that. For example, I have to create the best environment as possible, uh, to provide them a great experience when, working and do their daily activities. Uh, so because of that, if they have any issue with the environment, for example, if they are trying to build a new feature and they are struggling to, build their releases or running their tests, or, for example, migrating their database migrations, for any kind of test that they are trying to do, if they are facing any issues with the environment, I have to try to help them out to fix that issues. And I think that it's also important to understand what that happened and try to work in order to avoid that to happen again. So this is one of my main responsibilities. And other than this, I think that as a DevOps engineer, I have to guarantee the service is healthy, especially in production, for example. So then I have to work in order to, to provide a better vision about our services healthy, like creating some dashboards, creating some alerts. And if for any reason something happened, so then everyone in the company, or at least the developers team, should be notified about what's going on, especially in production, but not just in production, also in other environments. And other than this, since one of my responsibilities is to make the developer's life easier, it would also be good to always proactively suggest some new tools, some new features that might somehow help them out with their tasks. For example, nowadays I've been working on a new tool, which is going to be our query database dashboard in order to evaluate our database performances, our database usage. For example, we can see that some of the indexes are underused, or they're not being used, or they should be improved, and all of this kind of thing. So I've been working on a new tool, so I have to study about that tool, learn how we can implement, how we can deploy that new tool, and then create, documentation, share how we can use that tool with all the team. So all these kind of things. So I can say that I've mentioned two, but it would be three main responsibilities, like uh, make developers' life easier, guarantee the health of the services, especially in production, and also, suggest and introduce new features, new tools to create the best environment as possible.
Yeah, so that sounds interesting. And as I can understand, a DevOps engineer is a combination of a business analyst, a developer, a quality engineer, a team member from the ops team, and I would say a guy who keeps monitoring the system to make sure everything is healthy and performing well, and there is no downtime for your production sites. So it's really interesting to see how a DevOps engineer gets all these things on his plate and keeps doing things on correct ways, and it just ensures that your production sites are in healthy state and they are in a reliable state for long terms.
Yeah. Well, I can say that a DevOps engineer is a kind of cross-company position. So I have to
Yeah.
get in touch with everyone inside the company, try to help everyone inside the company. Once talking about environment and, environment, especially talking about infrastructure and IT. And I can, I think it would be good to now share some kind of examples that already happened to me that it would be good to share with you. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, one of our QA team, he reached me out and asked me to help him out with a specific test, because our QA team, they must run their regression tests daily.
Yeah.
And then, they were running that daily and so on, but it was really manual task and so on. So then what I did for them was I created a kind of automation regression test and create a script to run that test daily at midnight. And if everything goes wrong, we should send a message into Slack and notify the team about the test that failed. So then daily, we can see a status report for all the tests that ran into a staging environment, and we can see if everything goes well, if something goes wrong, and if so, the owner for those features will be notified and they can start work on it. So this was one of the kind of example that demands my help in order to make the QA's team's life easier.
Yeah.
And other
Yeah.
than this, for
Yeah. Go
example,
ahead. Go ahead.
this week we have a very, how can I say, important issue in production environment that affects multiple services inside the company. And then I have to work in order to, troubleshoot and understand what was going on, uh, identify the root cause for it, and of course that once I found, I fixed that issue. But not just that. Now I created an alert to notify everyone if that for any reason start happening again. So then there was a specific kind of error that was, popping up for the services. And then if for any reason that kind of issue happen again, will be notified previously, and we can, take actions in advance before, have a hard outage. So these
Yeah.
are kind of examples that a DevOps engineer have to work on and have to, always get in touch with many people cross company and try to somehow improve the environment, improve the tasks and so on.
Yeah, so like the monitoring and alerts are much important, because let's
Yeah,
say if your production environment is going to use like using higher memory or higher CPU usage is there, you should be alerted, because there are chances that it might go beyond the limit and you might get your production server down. So yeah, monitoring and alerts are same has same important as like we have the let's say developers tasks and their responsibilities. So
for sure.
moving on to like next question. uh I remember you said like were a full stack developer before transitioning to a DevOps engineer.
Yeah.
So how did this change came in your career, and like how did it went so far?
Okay. So, well, as you've mentioned, I was working as a full stack developer before migrating to a DevOps position. And when I was working as a full stack developer, I always liked, some kind of DevOps activities, like how to containerize the applications, how to work with that kind of tools, how to automate some tasks. And because of that, I had already worked and studied about some specific tools, which is very important for DevOps engineers, like how to use Docker, how to use Kubernetes, how to use Jenkins. And so it happened in my daily activity, daily work as a full stack developer. However, I had a kind of very amazing experience, and it happened like 3 years ago. In the company that I was working for, there was a program to help the developers inside the company to take the GCP certification. So then they share some kind of documentation with us regarding how to take the GCP certification, and they also paid the exam for us. So then it was very good because I was stimulated to study about a specific cloud provider, and I was able to take two certifications. It was for architect and also for data engineer. So it was really good because I create a very strong knowledge on a specific cloud provider. And it was very good because a couple of months later, there was another program inside the same company to select some specific engineers to help them out with a specific project, which was related to DevOps activities. So then that project was to work for a very important US sport league, and they wanted to some help to migrate their whole cloud from AWS into GCP. So then it was really good because I've also learned a bit about how to use AWS, and I had to learn uh, a lot of different DevOps tools. So I've learned how to use Terraform, how to use Vault, how to use Ansible, Argo CD, Jenkins X. So it was a very intense and a very amazing experience inside those projects. It was a kind of 6 months project, but that allows me to have a better knowledge about some of DevOps tools. And since that time, I've been trying to, do this whole migration. So after that project, I start working as a half-time DevOps engineer. So in the mid, in part of my day, I was working as a software engineer, and other part I was working as a DevOps engineer, help the company with some DevOps tools. And then finally, this year, I start working as a full-time DevOps engineer. So it wasn't a hard transitioning. It was a soft transitioning that I start working with some tools and then working part-time as a DevOps engineer, and now finally working as a full-time DevOps engineer.
Yes, like you had an opportunity, and always like if opportunity meets hard work, you are able to get the results down the line. So, like after you got the opportunity, you got the certifications done. You started as a part-time DevOps engineer, and then it's like you're doing a full-time DevOps role. That's really fantastic. So, like while you made this switch to a DevOps from a full stack engineer, how are the challenges, like how much different it is from your previous role, like you were a full stack developer and now you are a DevOps engineer, like you had new stuff. So how did you manage to
Okay.
learn all that and face these challenges?
Okay. I see. Well, first of all, let me first talk about the similarities between a full stack engineer and a DevOps engineer. I think that, of course, that if we're aim to be a good one, regardless which position you are, I think you should have a strong knowledge on a specific programming language. It's really good to have. Like if you are a full stack dev engineer, you might be really good on Java, on Python, or so on. And also, as a DevOps engineer, it's also really good to have a strong knowledge on a specific programming language, but at this time it's going to be a different one, like Terraform, Chief, and so on. Other than this, I think it's always good to have a strong base computing knowledge. I mean, uh, how does, what are the main data structures? What are the main features that you might use, to store data using a database or using a cache strategy and so on. Also, network knowledge, security knowledge. I think that it's uh, always good to have those kind of knowledge on both positions, on both kind of positions, and also a very strong troubleshooting skills. I think if you want to work as a DevOps engineer, it's really important to have a very strong troubleshooting skills. But of course, that there are some differences. And for example, the first one and the one that I've already mentioned before, a DevOps engineer is going to be a cross-company position. So for sure that you're going to have to work and talk with everyone inside the company, which might be different when you work as a full stack developer, because as a full stack developer, you might be just on your team and work on your features and so on. Of course, that you're going to have a daily challenge uh, as a DevOps engineer. Of course, that as a DevOps developer one, you will also have a daily challenge on your day. But however, as a DevOps engineer, I think that since you are a cross company position, you probably will be involved on most of the issues that is happening on the company somehow. So if something pops up, hey, Max, let's take a look at this and see how we can fix, how we can improve the monitoring. So every time you're going to be involved on what's going on, and you should be able to troubleshooting, understand what's going on, try to improve the environment, and so on. Well, other than this, as I've mentioned before, one of our responsibilities is to suggest and introduce new features, new tools. So of course that we're going to have to deal with different tools every time, every day, and then it might be challenge because a couple of days ago I was struggling with an issue because we've been using a specific tool to query database stuff, and then they deployed a new version, and in this new version they have a bug there. So then I have to troubleshoot and understand what was the issue, create a ticket to ask them to fix that bug. So every time you're going to have to deal with some specific tools that was created by third-party companies, and you have to somehow fix that or at least address what's going on. This is also something that it's different. Of course, that as I've mentioned before, it's also good to have a strong knowledge with networking, with security as a developer, but as a DevOps engineer, it's kind of mandatory to have this kind of knowledge. And also, there are some specific tools that we're going to have to work with if you're working as a DevOps engineer. So as I've mentioned, Terraform, which is a infrastructure as code. So we're going to have this is going to be our daily activity, create infrastructure as code. Also a great knowledge on at least one of the cloud providers. It's really important. And finally, some other tools, like you must have a great knowledge on GitHub, how to work with GitHub Actions, how to integrate with Slack or Gmail or this kind of communication tools, how to work with messaging, how to work with Linux. Linux is also really important to know once we are working as a DevOps engineer. So that I would say that are the most differences, most important differences between DevOps engineer and full stack engineer.
Yeah, and like as you mentioned, the list of tools or technologies DevOps engineer requires that will
Yeah,
surely provide developers looking to transition as a DevOps engineer a very good idea of what a role looks like and where they are lacking, so they can improve themselves on that.
yeah.
So, Mark, we have talked about the responsibilities, tech stacks, and challenges you had as a DevOps engineer. I think it's a good opportunity to move on towards talking about kind of DevOps engineers roles in the market. So could you
Okay.
shed some light on like what are the different DevOps engineer roles and what they do?
Okay. Yes, for sure that I can. But before I start talking about it, I just want to clarify that although we have different roles, uh, for sure that if you're gonna work as a DevOps engineer, you're gonna have to switch between those roles on your daily activities. Okay,
Yeah.
you won't be hard to work with just one of these roles.
Yes.
And I can enumerate then like the first one. You must, of course, that you can work on a very big company that is gonna have a DevOps team, or you might work on a smaller company that will have just one DevOps person, which is going to be you. So it's different depending on where you work, but as a DevOps engineer, it's always good to be the DevOps evangelist. And what I mean by that, I mean by that you must be the one that will share DevOps knowledge across everyone inside the team. And you should stimulate everyone to think about how to use DevOps, how to uh, take advantages of the DevOps, uh, approaches. Because of course that once you start working as a DevOps, you will never work alone. You will always need uh, everyone inside the company to work and think in DevOps to make the things happen in a good way. So I think that DevOps evangelist is it's a very important role that you might take. Another one that you might work as is a release manager. I mean, in order to have a great DevOps environment, you have to define some strategies to release new features. I think it's important to define what is a minor version, what is going to be your major version, uh, when and how they will be released, what's going to happen after they're releasing, are you going to run the regression tests every time that you release a new feature? Are they going to be released using feature toggles? Like the new feature will be uh, allowed or will be enabled for just a set of
Set up.
users. Other than this, how the new releases will be notified. I mean, if your business team will be notified about a new release that was released at that day and so on. So this is another important role that the DevOps might take. Other than this, I think that most excited one is the automation expert. Uh, as a DevOps, you might be the one that will try to automate most of the tasks inside their company in order to, again, make the developers' life easier. Other than this, you you should be the one to stimulate and try to help the company to implement the CI/CD stuff, like how the team will develop a new feature, how that new feature will be tested before released, and then after the release, how we will monitor what we must monitor after the release, and so on. This is also very important. And finally, you must also work as a security engineer. Like you must make sure that your firewall rules are okay. Both the inbound and outbound connections are happening as expected. If you have a cloud armor in front of your uh, endpoints to make sure that you won't be attacked. Other than these, the authentication and authorization are okay. Like only some specific people must have permission on production environments and see some kind of data and so on. And as a DevOps engineer, you must also work always to have a very great uh, quality and assurance environment. Like you should also suggest the QA team to implement some performance and load testing, some regression testing, and all this kind of testing that will uh, help everyone inside the company to be more confident and to release better features. So these, I would say, that are the most important roles that a DevOps might work as during their days.
Yeah, so a quick summary on the roles you discussed. First one was DevOps Evangelist. So
Yeah.
basically, they do end-to-end DevOps stuff, end-to-end strategies, and making sure that all the DevOps tasks are in alignment with developers, and like we have all the infrastructure and everything prepared. Next
Yeah.
one was, I guess, release manager, who is responsible for rolling out a production release, like how you want to do, when you want to do, and like once you do, how it will be available to end users. Like you want to do a batch release, you want to roll out as a strategic release so that it goes out in a strategy that it might be available for some users at the moment. After a couple of days, it releases for more users. So kind
Exactly.
of that release plans. After that, you have automation expert role, which is like basically doing all the things automated. So manual intervention doesn't require that. And basically you have everything automated so that you can be assured that these things are going to run at specific time, and that will surely generate a report for you, just like you mentioned that QA task which you did for a QA guy. So like
Yeah.
kind of those automations. After then, regular software developer or a tester role, which requires unit testing, basic development, and deployment strategies, and some continuous monitoring on your uh, sensitive features which can be mostly used and can make your servers crash. So just monitor those things. And the last one was security engineer, and I would say this is also important, because if you have all the aspects covered, but you don't have a good security, then you might be in trouble. So
For
make
sure.
sure to have good security, and being a quality assurance person, I would say like you should be having a good production environment. Like there should be no what we say minor bugs or anything. And if you find that, just get it fixed quickly. Otherwise, like it might get you in trouble and it might crash your servers. So as we
Exactly.
had all the specific roles discussed, could you like shed some skill sets like which each role required? Like most of the roles, let's say software developer, they might require some technology knowledge, like JavaScript or Java, whatever tech stack is there. Software like security engineers require a good knowledge on firewalls and everything. So like some basic skill sets that are required. I like not a brief summary, but a quick chat on that.
Okay. Well, let me start with the easiest one, which is automation, for example. I think that when you want to automate stuff, you might have a great technical knowledge on some specific tools. For example, first one is Terraform, or at least one infrastructure as code, and then you will be able to automate the creation of all the resources, specifically on cloud, for example. Other than this, it's also good to have a kind of great knowledge on Linux. Linux is also very helpful to help out to automate stuff there. And also, some kind of tools that allows you to create some hooks, like GitHub, for example, and also some of the communication tools like Slack and GitHub. It might be very helpful for you if you have a great knowledge on that, and you will be able to automate stuff, to notify what happened, and so on. As a CI/CD and as a DevOps Evangelist, I think that it's also really good to have a great technical knowledge on some specific tools that will help you out to create those environments. However, I think at this time, it's also very good to have a kind of software skill to, to try to stimulate the team and try to interactively introduce new features, new stuff, new DevOps stuff, and try to keep improving and creating a better environment every day. And I think that also to be a release manager, this kind of software skills is also really good, and it will help you out a lot to introduce and make sure that it's going to work inside your company. Regarding security engineer, technical knowledge, it's also very important. It's always good to have strong knowledge on networking, on some kind of security stuff, and especially on authorization and authentication, how we're going to create an environment to guarantee that only authorized people will have access to some stuff. And finally, quality assurance. It's also good to have a great knowledge on some tools again, but for quality assurance, I think it's more important to have a knowledge on what are the main methodologies that you might follow in order to have a great testing environment. Like if you want to do a load and performance test, if you know how to use a specific tool is also good, but it's very important to know what are the methodologies that you're going to introduce in order to have a better load and performance test, for example. So I think that it's very good to learn what are the main ways to do this kind of test to guarantee that your load and performance test will work as expected.
Yeah, those tools are like really important based upon your role, and
Yeah.
you should be at least having basic knowledge, or at least being a moderate knowledge on those all the skill sets, so that would help you debug all the issues you might face. So Marcus, now like we have talked about the roles in a general context, like we had discussion around that. So our discussion would be incomplete without talking about how this role changed for someone who is transitioning from a role of an experienced developer to a fresh DevOps engineer. So like someone who is transitioning, but they don't have a prior knowledge to this particular role. So
Okay.
how would you say it would impact their particular role?
Okay. Well, I can suggest a list of things that you might work with or you might study when you are transitioning from a full stack engineer into a DevOps engineer. And I can suggest some things like if you want to know more about containerization, you should study and work with Docker and Kubernetes. If you want to work with CI/CD and you want to implement some tests regarding CI/CD, you should learn and study about Jenkins, Argo CD, GitOps, Bamboo, and some other tools. Regarding cloud providers, I think that it's really important to learn how to work with cloud providers, because this will, allow you to be a good automation expert, to be a good DevOps evangelist, and so on. So I would enumerate Azure, AWS, and GCP, which are the most common used in the marketing nowadays. Other than this, it's highly recommend to learn how to use at least one infrastructure as code programming language like Terraform, Chief, Ansible. And other than this, there are some other further tools that it's always good to know about and to at least have a, at least know a bit about how they have been used. Like I can suggest some ETL tools like Grafana, Prometheus, Circonus, and also some monitoring tools like Datadog and New Relic. As you can see, for each kind of role that we're going to work with, there are a lot of different tools that you might work in order to work as a DevOps engineer. But it's very dependent on where you're going to work, how we're going to work. For example, for monitoring tools, I just suggested Datadog and New Relic. However, nowadays I'm not using none of them. I've been using the cloud monitoring, which is a specific monitoring tool provided by Google Cloud Platform. So I think that more than have a great knowledge on a specific tool, it's really important to know how does that work. And then depending on which tool that you're gonna use, you know at least how does that work, and you can quickly get some specifics about that tool. So it's very dependent on which tools that you're gonna use. But once you know one of them, it's gonna be a way easier to migrate to other tools. And other than this, I think that working as a DevOps engineer, it's not just about learning a lot of technical stuff. I think that soft skills is also important when we are going to work using some of these tools. And I can enumerate the most important one, troubleshooting, because for sure that we're going to face a lot of issues, and troubleshooting is a very important soft skill. Other than this, you might be able to share your ideas and to, again, stimulate your team to learn and understand how does that DevOps works. And you should also be proactive in order to suggest and introduce new tools to our team in our company to create a better environment.
Yeah, so like that's really interesting. And I would say with having knowledge on all those tools, you should be wise enough to choose when to use which one, because
Yeah,
there might this is the tool that is not completely a good fit for your use case. So I would say
for
just
sure.
learn about all the tools, assess that particular tool regarding your particular use case, and once you have done that particular assessment, you will have better idea on which tool you can go forward with. So
Of
I
course.
think these tools and the process we have discussed that will surely remove a lot of doubts from the aspiring DevOps engineer. So here I would like to call upon all the senior developers who are willing to work remotely with companies in the US. We have jobs in 100 plus technologies, including DevOps. If you are confident about your skill sets, head on to turing.com/jobs and apply now. So, Marcus, this has been a great discussion so far. And I think it is time to bring our talk to a close. But before we do that, could you share with our developers who are looking into transitioning from a full stack developer to a DevOps role, like some tips and how they can approach the interviews with no prior experience as a DevOps engineer? And I think some tips on how they can begin, that would be surely helping on their end.
Okay. Well, first of all, before talk about the tips, I would say that I believe that a DevOps engineer, a DevOps position, it's a mix of some things that for sure that you, as a full stack engineer, might already face on your daily activities. So I wouldn't say that you don't have any experience as a DevOps engineer. I, I think that at some point, somehow, you've already worked and did some kind of activities that are correlated with DevOps engineer position. So then, for example, I can say that DevOps is a mix of uh, experience with IT in general, because once you have experience on IT, you know that it's important to testing, to monitoring your features, to have a environment that will allow you to escalate your services. So for sure that you've already faced and worked with this somehow once in a time. And of course that you already have a previous knowledge on development. So you are for sure that we're very close to migrate to a DevOps position. And other than this, uh, I think that DevOps engineer is also a general experience with security, networking, testing, releasing, automation. So all of these things, I'm pretty sure that somehow you've already worked with or faced sometime when working as a full stack developer. Uh, well, I think that what I would recommend you to do, I think that you should think about these things that I've already mentioned, these at, at least this general stuff that I've already mentioned, automation, networking, security. I think that you should think about which of these things that you have a lack of knowledge at any point, and I think that you should tackle these kind of areas that you think that you don't have a strong knowledge and try to study those topics. Other than this, there are some YouTube channels or some very nice books that you might read and watch in order to have better understanding about these kind of areas. And well, other than this, you can also watch some of our mock interviews in order to have a great understanding about which kind of tools you might study and have great knowledge when trying to take one of the interviews. So that was I would recommend to you.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. That was really helpful. And I think
Thank
this
you.
will surely help people in turning into a DevOps engineer role. Thank you for sharing all the valuable advices and tools you have shared. So I hope our audience enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. That will be a wrap from our side. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any queries, please feel free to drop an email on support@turing.com. Let us know in the comment section if you have any suggestion for the next videos. Give us a big thumbs up if you like this video, and do not forget to subscribe to Turing.com. We will be back with many such Turing developer stories and more interviews. Till then, stay safe and click on the link in the description below to apply at Turing, and you will be able to get some DevOps role, or let's say a full stack role. So keep applying and have a good one. Thank you.